Harrison Ford entered the stage of Stephen Colbert's show. To the sound of enthusiastic cheers, his expression as usual was more stoic than joyful, but the audience greeted him like a returning hero. His steps were steady, his demeanor calm, yet the atmosphere around him held something heavier than usual. Colbert greeted him with warmth, beginning with jokes about his legendary roles and his famously terse personality. Ford responded with brief smiles and dry humor playing along at first as they moved into questions about his latest movie. Ford seemed increasingly guarded eyes, narrowing at each quip that leaned too far into personal jabs. Colbert poked at Ford's past interviews, asking if he ever actually liked doing press at all to which Ford replied sharply that liking something wasn't a prerequisite for doing it well. The audience chuckled nervously. Sensing the edge in his tone, Colbert pushed further questioning why Ford often came across as irritated in public appearances. Ford paused for a moment, looked directly at Colbert and said, "Maybe I just don't enjoy being turned into a punchline for other people's entertainment." His voice was low but heavy, and the mood shifted slightly, tension growing as Colbert tried to laugh it off again. Things escalated when Colbert jokingly asked if Ford ever forgot he was an actor and not actually a grumpy recluse. Ford leaned forward, hands clasped, and said quietly but firmly, "Maybe the difference is that I'm not pretending this isn't a role. This is me. You don't get to package me with a smirk and a laugh and think I won't notice." The studio went quieter, the audience unsure whether to clap or cringe. Colbert replied that it was all in good fun, but Ford interrupted, "Not everything is fun. Not everyone finds this fun. Some of us are just tired of being managed." Colbert tried shifting the subject to a funny on-set story from Ford's latest film, but Ford was not following the new tone. Instead, he asked why every conversation had to be safe, clean, polished like a performance, even when the questions themselves were not polite or respectful. Colbert responded that the audience was there to be entertained, not challenged. Ford stood up, slowly, adjusted his jacket and said, "Well, then maybe I'm not the guy you want. If you just want another soundbite," with a fake smile. The audience gasped, not loudly, but audibly surprised by his tone and his next actions. Ford took off his mic with a calmness that seemed more unnerving than shouting. He looked at Colbert one last time and said, "You should think about why people stop talking honestly on shows like this." Then he walked off the stage with no dramatic pause, no raised voice, only silence in his wake. Colbert remained seated, staring after him, caught between his hosting instincts and the shock of losing control of the segment. The band stayed silent. The cameras cut to a commercial far quicker than usual. Backstage staff reportedly scrambled, trying to understand if Ford was truly gone, or just cooling off. Sources later confirmed Ford had exited the building within minutes, declining to speak with producers or answer any questions from the media. He reportedly left without saying a single word to anyone, not even his own team, which was left stunned by the walkout. Colbert returned after the break with a forced smile and a vague joke about tough interviews and old cowboys. But the tension was still in the air. The remaining guests tried to lift the mood, but nothing quite landed, and the audience sensed that something unscripted had happened, something more real than the rest of the broadcast. Social media exploded as clips of Ford's exit spread across platforms with hashtags like Ford Walkout and Harrison Unfiltered, trending instantly. Fans and critics divided into camps. Some praised Ford for being raw and authentic, refusing to be a prop. Others accused him of being too sensitive, unwilling to play the game of modern publicity. Debates broke out about the role of late-night interviews, whether they served any real purpose beyond humor and promotion, and whether older stars like Ford were right to push back against the overly rehearsed mechanics of the format. The footage was everywhere within hours' talk. Shows across networks began to discuss the incident with various hosts, weighing in lightly, some defending Colbert, others expressing understanding for Ford. Many pointed out that the role of older actors had shifted from revered icons to memeable moments, and that perhaps Ford was simply rejecting the idea that his legacy could be mined endlessly for jokes and clout. No statement was issued by his team, and the network released only a brief note calling it a spirited moment of live television. Meanwhile, the online conversation grew louder, with fans sharing quotes from Ford's interviews that suddenly felt prophetic. Days later, Ford posted a short handwritten note to his official page. It read, I have always respected conversation, not performance. If that makes me difficult, then so be it. The note was scanned from real paper, not typed, not filtered, and fans shared it thousands of times over, some seeing it as a quiet manifesto, others as a final public stance before retreating from the spotlight. Again, regardless. It was clear the walkout had become more than just a news cycle blip. It had tapped into a broader fatigue with artificiality and a growing hunger for moments that felt genuine. What started as a routine interview ended up as a turning point for how audiences view celebrity culture. Not every guest will smile on cue, not every legend will let their legacy be flattened into jokes for views and applause. Harrison Ford, walking off Stephen Colbert's stage, was not just an act of frustration, it was a refusal to play along with the expectations placed on performers. Decades into their careers, it became a symbol of quiet rebellion, not with fire or volume, but with the simple act of walking away from the noise and toward something more honest if less understood.